was an old abandoned house right in the middle of a fancy neighborhood. The house was large and beautiful once, with tall windows and grand doors, but now it looked run down and scary. No one dared to go near it, even though it was in a nice area where houses usually sold fast. People said it was haunted, and all kinds of spooky stories spread about the strange things that happened there at night. It was so frightening that people wouldn't even look at it for too long. My friend Albert was the unlucky real estate agent responsible for selling this creepy house. Albert had been in the real estate business for years and was used to closing deals on houses no matter the condition. But this house was his biggest challenge yet. He tried everything he could think of to get someone to buy it. He lowered the price again and again, advertised it as a collector's dream for fans of old historical homes, and even mentioned the word haunted in the ads, hoping it might attract ghost hunters or adventure seekers. Despite all his efforts, no one showed interest. Everyone knew the spooky stories, and no one was brave enough to make an offer, even when Albert practically offered to give it away. Just when he was about to give up, he had an idea that he thought was brilliant. Why not sell it to someone from out of town who doesn't know the rumors? He thought. He found a wealthy city slicker from the States who was looking for a unique property but hadn't actually seen the house in person. Albert sold it to him sight unseen, and to his surprise, the man agreed without hesitation. Albert was thrilled. He'd finally sold the haunted house and even made a nice profit. Months went by, and Albert thought he was finally free of the haunted house. But then, one day, the city slicker called him unexpectedly. "Albert," he said, "I've been thinking about my house. I'd like to visit and see it in person." Albert tried to sound calm, but he felt a chill run down his spine. He'd been hoping the man would never actually want to see the house. "Oh, are you sure?" Albert asked, trying to sound casual. Well, it has its own charm, but I assure you, it's all just as I described." The city slicker was insistent. "I'm sure, Albert. I'd like to see it for myself." "Why don't you show me around?" Albert had no choice but to agree, but he set the tour for high noon, the safest time he could think of. He figured any ghostly activity would be less likely to happen in broad daylight. But on the day of the visit, things went wrong from the start. The city slicker's train was delayed, so it was nearly dark when they finally set out for the house. And, as if on cue, it started to rain heavily, making the night even darker and eerier. Albert felt a growing sense of dread, but tried to brush it off. "It's just a house," he told himself, even though deep down, he was scared too. When they reached the house, Albert took out the key and unlocked the front door. The hinges creaked loudly as the door slowly opened, the sound echoing through the empty rooms. Albert gulped nervously, but the city slicker seemed unfazed. In fact, he seemed to enjoy the atmosphere. "Perfect for a haunted house," he laughed. "The creaking door is a nice touch." Albert forced a weak smile and followed him inside. They stepped into the tall foyer, which was covered in thick layers of dusty cobwebs. The city slicker looked around, admiring the old woodwork and high ceilings. "Creepy," he said with excitement. "This place is great." Then, he did something that sent a chill down Albert's spine. He walked into the middle of the foyer, spread his arms wide, and shouted, "Come to me, foul spirits." Immediately, the whole house filled with an eerie, deep chuckle that made Albert's skin crawl. A voice echoed through the halls, dark and slow. I'm coming down. Now, the city slicker jumped, then turned to Albert with a big grin on his face. Wow, great special effects. How did you pull that off? Albert's face turned pale, and his hands started to shake. I didn't, he stammered. He was frozen with fear, standing near the door, his hand tightly gripping the doorknob, ready to bolt. At the first sign of danger, the voice boomed again, louder this time. I'm coming down now. The city slicker's smile faded a bit as he noticed how frightened Albert looked. He followed Albert's gaze and turned to look up the grand staircase. At the top of the stairs, a bright green light appeared, growing brighter and brighter. Slowly, it formed into the shape of a sinister head with flaming red eyes, hair writhing like snakes, and sharp fangs instead of teeth. The head opened its mouth wide and let out a bone-chilling scream, a sound so piercing and terrifying that it seemed to slice through the air. The city slicker gasped, taking a few steps back, but before he could say anything, the head began to roll down the stairs, bouncing slowly at first and then faster and faster as it came toward them. Albert's courage shattered completely. Without thinking, he turned and ran out of the house, screaming as he bolted down the street. His feet barely touched the ground as he sprinted, heart pounding, his only thought being to get as far away as possible. As he ran, he suddenly noticed he wasn't alone. The city slicker was running right beside him, gasping for breath, but matching his pace. Mister, he panted, I don't think I want that house after all. Just then, a familiar voice joined their conversation. Why not? It asked in a slow, eerie tone. Both men looked to the side and saw the green head with its flaming red eyes floating beside them. Keeping up with them effortlessly, the city slicker let out a high-pitched scream that would have put a banshee to shame, and he took off, running even faster until he disappeared into the darkness. Too fast for Albert to keep up. Albert looked over at the head, which seemed to sigh. Must have been the asking price, it said with a hint of disappointment. That was it for Albert. He screamed louder than ever and took off running, faster than he'd ever run before. His shoes made sparks as he dashed down the road, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The next day, Albert made a big decision. He quit his job, packed up, and moved far away to Vancouver, where he took up work on a quiet fishing boat. He never spoke of the haunted house again. As for the house, it remained abandoned, slowly crumbling until, years later, it was finally torn down. People said that the ghost moved on after that, but others whispered that it still roamed the fancy neighborhood, looking for someone brave enough to enter. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more magical stories. See you in the next one.